Hi, my name's Arvish, this is Fariza, and this is Herbert, and we are the first graduating class of the Global Politics course in UWC, and we are the class of 2019. And today we're going to be just discussing a couple of questions about global politics and future decisions. Future directions, sorry. So which concepts have been the most interesting and important to learn about?
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important topic that kind of is the foundation of global politics is power. And it's really interesting because we use it all the time, but we don't necessarily know how to define it and how to properly talk about it. So that was one of the first conversations we had, and I think that helped build a foundation for how we talk about everything in global politics.
I think these kinds of underlying concepts of legitimacy and sovereignty, and also power, like Fraser said, I've understood them much better than I used to. Even reading before, you hear these words dropped quite easily and quite frequently in texts. But a lot of times you maybe don't know what really goes into the meaning behind it, and understanding these concepts have really helped me understand politics or history in a much better sense.
Agreeing with that, I would say globalization and independence is also a key aspect of global politics, because global politics is such a course that is based on current affairs and current events. It shows forth how the world is currently changing and moving, and with the use of globalization and interdependence, these concepts are very interesting because they're really applicable to how we look at situations in real life, whether we're reading a newspaper, whether we're watching the news, and how we see the world change as we grow up. So I think it's interesting to apply that to our own lives.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Which concepts do you see most reflected in the current affairs you watch, read, and listen to?
I think all 16 of our key concepts is something that we can see present in anything that's going on in current affairs.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to do with equality. I think equality is something that I've come across very frequently when I'm from the exposure from media, especially in the light of the Me Too movement, and but also with the conflict between China and the United States. There's a lot of power struggle between the two, economics and military wise. So these are the things that I mostly come across.
For me, I would kind of look at it in two ways. I would say what's most currently, what is most reflected through current affairs would be the difference in how historical conflicts used to be between states and how the world is kind of changing towards focusing on how non-state actors are able to impact the decisions of states itself. And that doesn't necessarily need to be just conflict. It could be just interchanging and interdependence between like NGOs, states, how they impact each other, and just the connections, how they're all interlinked.
Yeah.
Agree.
So how do you think that studying global politics has altered, shaped, or reaffirmed your worldview?
I think, like we said before, just knowing how to define and talk about these key concepts allows us to really understand the nuances of how the world works. And when we see current affairs, like we're watching the news, we can apply what we've learned and start to analyze political issues better and understand the world better because of it.
For me, it's probably it's kind of moving away from taking a radical stance for one or the other, be it left wing, right wing, center. Is that you have to understand that there's a multitude of factors that goes into an event or that goes into a conflict between actors and into your worldview as well. And I think having the capacity to understand that you don't have to agree with everything that's on one side or the other side, that there might be a golden way for you, and that your own personal ideology might be derived from a multitude of different perspectives. I think that's, for me, Global has really helped me to not put only my faith in one or the other, but be much more open and try to be as disinterested as possible, impartial.
I would probably agree with Herbert's part the most. It's interesting to see how we would specifically take one stance on a certain topic or affair, but after really analyzing how it affects different parties, how it affects different stakeholders, it's interesting to see the different perspectives involved and how different people are affected. So how do you think that learning about global politics will impact you in the future, university, NS, or job prospects?
Well, when I go to uni, I will specifically be studying like international relations and aid and development. So what I've learned in GloPo is very useful for me moving forward. But I think regardless of what you're studying at uni, it's applicable to everything and how you look at current affairs. So, yeah.
And for me, it's I'm going to the same strain as Fariza, studying philosophy, politics, and economics. And I think when it comes to university, I definitely already have like a certain basis of understanding to what goes into politics and how I can evaluate certain situations. So I already have that base knowledge. As well as if I look into the front, for example, looking at all the conflicts that we've looked inside our syllabus, is that I don't really want to do national service anymore. I didn't want to do national service before, but now I'm even more against it, just looking at the sheer effect that militarization has on global security and the well-being of and welfare of people. Lastly, for job prospects, I think we moved to a state where a person's malleability or the way you can shape a person in their job has become a very important factor. So you need to be very fluid in that sense. And I think GloPo, being aware of world issues, I think it's one of the more the key aspects of being a more understanding and I wouldn't say nicer. That's fine. I'm more of an understanding person, yeah. I think GloPo has really helped me with that.
Alright, so I specifically am doing national service, and there's a lot of connections towards military power, military influence in global politics. So going to national service, I think I have a much broader and better idea of how it's going to look like on maybe an international perspective, maybe on how the effects it has on different parties and countries and stuff like that. So I do understand the whole idea of NS better, and hopefully the knowledge I have can be applied towards my military training.
So maybe two words on how did you enjoy the GloPo course? Fariza, how did you enjoy the GloPo course?
It's meant to be 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Go.
It was very informative.
Okay, let's just stop this. This is